Are City the new comeback kids?
They're not a new comeback kings. I think that they are the team that this is my personal opinion. I think over the years people have criticized City for their mentality, but in the last few games City have played, they've shown a lot of resolve with the ability to come back. The first time they came back from 3 goals down against Newcastle, as in 3-1 down against, and it's not an easy thing, and it actually dates way back to the last game of last season when.
Against West Ham,
against Aston Villa. Everything was on the table. They were on the cups of winning the league, and it was slipping through their hands. They had to come back from 2 goals now, get into the league. They've done it twice on the bounce. I think gradually, this is what I think. They are building a certain mentality that is going to prepare them for Europe. Because over the years, we've criticized them for how they break. Their mentality is a bit frail when it comes to they being able to play some of these difficult European games. And for me, it was not so much of what Crystal Palace did. It was what City had to do, because in the first half, tactically, I think Pep was very matched boot for boot.
I get your point, but we should rather be worried about how they always have to concede like 2 goals before they're able to come back. Because in their last 6 games, they've had to come back from 2 goals down on 4 occasions. That's a worry.
I think it's a worry, but you see, if you watch the goals on Saturday, I think they were fortuitous goals and fortuitous goals.
It doesn't matter, like
for me,
the second goal was bad defending.
So it means that they've got issues at the back.
Great. I think yes, it's true, and I'm sure they themselves, because City are one of those teams that they don't concede at will. Last season, 21 games without conceding, and so for them to have conceded 5 goals in just 2 games within the space of 1 week, I think is very worrying. But for me, the manager's ability to switch tactics in the second half, he simply went for a 4-2-2 setup, which literally meant that Bernardo Silva had the space to do literally the things he would. That's why you realize that Kevin De Bruyne had very little impact in the team, as opposed to Bernardo Silva. And we need to give the manager, not necessarily the manager, the players, for me, that credit, because it's not easy. Crystal Palace have been a side, they are one of their boogie sides in the Premier League.
I rather would want to give credit to Pep Guardiola, because Kofi, 16 games unbeaten, and this backdates from February. They've not lost a game. 16 times on the bounce, 16 times they've had to win all of their games. So I begin to wonder, what again would Pep do in the EP? Because it looks like the man is just in a league of his own. Of course, we know he's...
Well, I don't think he's in the league of his own. The fact of the matter is that I think that since the commencement of the EPL, there's not been a manager like Pep Guardiola who has been given an enormous amount of money to spend. He's been in the EPL for barely 6 seasons, and he has spent everybody in the history of the EPL.
That's fine.
To whom much is given, much is expected.
That's fine. Yes. But then, if you go on that tangent, then I would want to chip in the fact that should I then begin to ask you that, are you by this saying that, I mean, when you spend, it's automatically would have to guarantee success, is that what you're saying?
Invariably, yes.
No, that's true.
Nobody spends not to get results.
Kofi.
Nobody spends not to get results. Invariably, yes. I mean, who has spent that has not gotten results?
Every manager spends.
It's the quantum. It is the quantum. Please. We are here talking about a terrible defense. I mean, this is a guy who has spent over £600 million on his defense. I mean, you don't concede those goals with a £600 million budget defense. No. So, yes, I mean, you cannot take away everything that Pep Guardiola has done. I think that he's been excellent in the APL. Yeah. I think that he's bought right. They've sold very well, I look at City's business this summer, and I think that they've been very shrewd, very, very wise, and they've sold players who I don't think warranted those figures, but they've sold right. You understand? And I think that relatively they've recruited very right. Yeah. You look at the capture of Erling Haaland, one of the hottest, youngest properties. And for me, I think that he was one of the chief catalysts. You know, a couple of weeks ago, we had this conversation about the fact that, what will opponents do if the whole of City's,
come to the party?
City's Northern Cavalry come to the party. Yesterday was an off day for Kevin De Bruyne.
But then this guy showed up.
Yes, Bernardo Silva
showed up
and played excellently
well.
Excellently. Then you have characters like the German boy coming from the bench, the guy who used to be at Dortmund coming from the bench. You understand?
Gundogan
coming from the bench.
He's actually their captain.
Exactly. I mean, you look at all of these parameters. I mean,
am I getting the impression or indication from you that they're going to defend their crown?
They are chasing history.
Yeah.
Never has there been any team in the EPL
3 times on the bounce.
Manchester United
3 times on the
who have
bounce.
won the league 3 times on the trot. I think it's going to be very difficult for City this season. Very, very difficult. Maybe Loki talks about their mentality and their quest to want to win the Champions League. I think that has to be their biggest motivation.
I know football doesn't follow that
logic
certain
pattern.
But I look at how they had to start their season on a very patchy note last season, but eventually had to get their way back and then won the league eventually. So I'm looking at how they've had to start the season now.
Well,
against the backdrop of how Erling Haaland is firing from all cylinders. So for Haaland, I would want to ask, how many goals is he going to score? Because for the return of goals, we knew he was always going to get those goals. But as to how many he's going to score, is what,
But
Kofi, a hat-trick yesterday.
I think that for Haaland,
6-4, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I personally think he'll get more than 20 league goals. And a bit on, you asked the question, there's no correlation between spending and results. I mean, we've seen clubs.
Oh, you want to take us back there again?
Nottingham's Forest, as we speak, have spent over, 150 million pounds, yet there's nothing to show for it. So for that, I think there's no correlation between spending and result. But I think that if you look at this City side, the question or the statement that we should put out there is that can any team derail or stop them from winning the league? Because as we speak, Chelsea are going through a turbulent season. Very tumultuous one. Liverpool themselves have not found their groove. If you beat Bournemouth 9, it's nothing. I mean, this is a Bournemouth side.
But
people are trouncing left, right, center.
I look at this City team and I think to myself, they are not like the City team of 2 seasons ago. This City team has so many deficiencies.
Just as they have so many deficiencies.
I think the teams can go toe to toe with them and beat them. Yes, I am very convinced about that.
This team has so many deficiencies. The danger with this City team, or the dangerous thing about this City team, is the varied ways this City team can decide to play. 2 seasons ago, it's always been a front 3 where they do not have a striker that is playing through centrally. With Haaland, he's going to play through centrally because he's not good playing on the wing. It's only a matter of getting him the balls. Just find that space. Whenever he meets teams that decide to shut up shop, there are wingers who can stretch the defense and they can decide we are not going to use Haaland because the forward line is, apart from Foden, who I do not know what he's thinking lately, he's become, for me, his form has dipped a lot.
He's out of sort now.
Yeah, almost everybody can score. Gundogan can score. Bernardo Silva can score. Last season, their top scorer, 21 goals.
Okay.
Mahrez can score.
So speaking of scoring, Bournemouth, they suffered the brunt of Liverpool.
I don't think
on the back of that,
people
defeat
against
they suffered at the hands of Manchester United. I think
Bournemouth, Scott Parker and his team have been naive throughout the games they've played. Very naive in all the games they've played, especially against the big sides. And I want to cut them some slack because they've been playing big teams. They played Liverpool.
Why are you
played Arsenal?
Sound as though you're taking credit off Liverpool.
No. But listen, Bournemouth has played Liverpool. They've played Arsenal. They've played City. Come on.
Not every team can score 9.
Yeah, but come on. And that's what I'm saying. They were naive when it comes to their defending. They allowed Liverpool.
No, all I'm saying is that I don't like your posturing. Like you're taking credit off Liverpool.
Well, if that's how I come across, I think that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that Liverpool were good on the day because they made sure that they exploited the weaknesses and the deficiencies in that Bournemouth defense, where I felt that they allowed Liverpool too much space. There were so many times on countless occasions we saw Trent Alexander literally play as a 10.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do that in the Manchester United game. Every team, you need to look at your strength. your weaknesses, the opponent I'm coming up against. I always say this in football: when you have the ball, what do you do with the ball? When you do not have the ball, what do you do? When Liverpool had the ball and Bournemouth didn't have the ball, they were just allowing them space. They were just allowing the likes of Trent and the fullback Robinson to literally run rings around them, with Firmino literally having a field day. That's why I felt they were very naive. Okay. But let's give Liverpool the credit, because they showed people that, hey, it was just a patchy period.
Let's try and find a balance as to the narrative out there. So the narrative out there is that they miss Sadio Mane. There's a school of thought that suggests they need a central midfielder.
He didn't score. Salah didn't score. Yes, he scored 9. Salah didn't score.
So is it that? So let's try and find a balance, or if you like, reconcile. Which of them are Liverpool really liking? That central figure, or the money factor?
Well, I'll go with the money factor. Because if you really look at the records, they virtually won everything with money and a terrible midfield. Yeah. That's the point. I mean, there's no denying the fact that...
That's a fantastic point. Yeah, so they won everything with that terrible,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no denying the fact that Liverpool midfield has never been quality. It's never been quality.
So he admits that he now needs... I mean, Klopp...
he actually admitted that he now needs...
That central,
I think we need to cut him. We need to cut him a break. He's human. Sometimes when he sits back, analyzes a team, I think I can do with what I have. But he realizes that the opponent is coming up against...
We have an issue when he makes those mistakes a lot of the time.
But that's where I agree with Kofi. People have called for a quality midfielder, and he's
we talk about Klopp and his reaction when Pogba was bought. Things he said. We talk about Klopp and his reaction.
He goes to buy 100 million pounds. I think the inconsistency with Klopp, people have questioned it. And sometimes his post-match press conferences, sometimes are a bit, worrying. But I think that, you see, this Liverpool, I agree with Kofi. They miss money more than they needing a central striker, because what money brings is that the variations to his play. He can play on the left, play on the right, play through the middle, even play as a 10. And money, when you're on the counter, Money is about one of the best guys who can initiate that counter-attack play that Liverpool are so good with their fullbacks. We've always said that the way to break down Liverpool is stop their fullbacks from playing. If you stop their fullbacks from playing, you've literally neutralized the Liverpool team.
The attack,
because the midfield will not, function because we've talked about their midfield badly. Yeah. So that's why if you watch, their attack is literally their fullbacks. When Mane was there, he was that guy who could come into the middle, play as a 10, and be more of a creator of a sort. There's a reason why Mo Salah is struggling to find his feet, because he had developed a certain telepathy with Mane. That would take time. That this same telepathy, it would take some time to build with the new front three they are trying to rebuild.
Okay, but that's what they say. Their season just began. The Liverpool faithful,
but 9
for Chelsea, you have to play close to an hour, a little over an hour, with a numerical disadvantage, but eventually had to grind results against Brendan Rodgers. My issue about that game has to do with Brendan Rodgers. He should be reminded that
he's a goner.
Really?
He's a goner.
I said I
told you guys that. Listen,
I think he has to be relooked. I agree with Kofi.
The issues of Leicester did not just start this season. Last season, towards the tail end of last season, and even 2 seasons ago, where they were in a fight to get a Champions League spot, they capitulated big time. And so, for me, I think that there comes a time in the life of a manager where you realize that you cannot improve the squad again. I think this is where Leicester is. Brendan Rodgers has pushed himself to the limit. I don't think he can improve Leicester. I think Leicester on a free fall, downward spiral.
Would you want to?
I do not want to blame. I keep saying this. I don't want to blame Brendan Rodgers, and I agree. You see, every good manager's strength lies in the fact that you can, or you are able to translate your ideas into the players and for them to deliver on the pitch. I think that this team has gotten to the point where the team is stalemate now, because 90% of the players they are either old or some of them want to leave. The key men in the team, Telemann, though he has signed a new contract, I mean, he at the back of his mind, I wish I had left to Arsenal. Maddison, likewise. Fofana is on the verge of leaving. Literally, the team is destabilized, and you could clearly
Vardy is in the twilight of his career.
And clearly, that's where I think I agree with Kofi if we want to blame Brendan Rodgers, because you need to sign and sign good. Because you could see that he's worked with these players for more than 3 seasons, 4 seasons, and over. This is about the time you need fresh blood, guys who would work with your ideas, because clearly these guys feel we have self-actualized. We want a bigger challenge. Leicester is not a challenge anymore. I want to go to Arsenal. I want to go to Chelsea. And so he needs to find a new injection into this team. Is he a good manager? I think he's an okay manager. That when he gets a sizable...
But you blame him because they are broke.
That's what I'm saying. You do not blame him. That's why they need to sell.
No, but you're broke. But you need to buy rights. I mean, no, listen. Look at the other teams in the other categories. Why they need to let go of
Fofana?
No, but look at the other teams.
£75 million.
No, look at the why is
enough money to at least
exactly. I think that there are other models that you can look at. Even in the EPL. Teams who do not necessarily have to spend big money on
that.
players.
A quick one. If you watch Leicester, they've actually brought in 2 new players from the academy. They are looking at using their academy model, and I think that's about the way to go. And maybe you could buy some of these players from the championships and inject them into the club. Other than that, I think that Leicester.
That said, I think that we need to give a lot of credit to Chelsea.
I've heard you say that.
No. I was not impressed one bit.
I've heard you say that Raheem Sterling is almost done.
He's done. I mean, please, he's done. I'm still not impressed with this Chelsea. I think that it's time people had a microscopic eye on Tuchel, because I feel Tuchel is giving a lot of excuses.
No, I was impressed because
Chelsea technically and tactically have not been performing well.
Team would have lost this game.
Lucky, how else were you expecting Chelsea to defend? Because to have played the entire almost 62 minutes, Gallagher was sent off.
Yes.
On 28 minutes.
Yes.
How else were you expecting Chelsea to play?
I've watched countless occasions. You see, the fact that you are a man down, football is about possession and utilizing space. That's it.
How many teams are able to survive that?
I have seen Liverpool.
How many teams are able to survive that?
I have seen Liverpool go a man up. Last season, when Liverpool played against Chelsea, Chelsea had gone a man down, but Chelsea held them so well. The game ended in a draw. Football is about utilizing spaces. When Chelsea have the ball, what do? They were fumbling to find spaces, and that's why I think that I'm always saying that let's take a microscopic look at Tuchel, because do Chelsea have money to spend? Yes. Todd Bowley has proven that he's willing to spend. Why don't you go out there? Now, Kovacic is not regular in your team. Kante, we know his issues with injuries. Why don't you bring in a player, a Mazella, who can work and create those spaces? Because aside Kovacic and Kante, there's nobody in the middle of the pack that can create those spaces for you.
Who do you propose to go for?
The guy United were after, the Lazio guy, Milanko Savic.
Oh, damaged goods.
Savic is a damaged goods. Or Milanko Savic. One of the brilliant Mazelas you can find in the world.
I'm telling you.
Anyway, but Kofi, it looks to me as though
the rival started.
It looks to me as though Ten Hag is sacrificing his style for serenity around the team, because that was unlike Ten Hag. They may have won, but whatever I saw of his team is nothing. That's not the true Ten Hag team I saw against Southampton.
I agree. Not just against Southampton, against
Liverpool.
You realize that there were issues with United in the first 2 games, against Brighton, against Brentford. The issues were there for everybody to see playing from the back. It started with the goalkeeper playing from the back. Obviously, the goalkeeper and the people around were not too comfortable playing the ball from back. So what they did against Liverpool was to avoid playing from the back and then try to go a bit direct, you understand? And I think that if you watch yesterday's game also, they neglected some of the playing from the back and tried to mix it up. I think that what affords a manager time is to start getting the results. And take it or leave it. United have not gotten an away result in a long while.
8 games, 7 games actually.
In a long while. It dates back to last season. And so going there at a very difficult ground like Southampton, doing what they had to do, I think that yes, I mean, you can blame Eric Ten Hag for not playing true to his principles, but I think that at this material time, results are the biggest currency that he could vouch for.
So you are all for it. He sacrifices his style. No.
I still believe that
results regardless.
Eric Ten Hag will play what he wants to play, but he needs a platform on which he can play what he wants to play. And for me, I think that we all need to trust the judgment of the manager. I mean, Malacia, Martinez, Eriksson, every Ten Hag signing has their imprint on this Manchester United.
But it looks like he's finding his centre half partnership in Lisandro and Varane.
Any sane manager.
And there's word on the street that Maguire is actually pushing for a deal to Chelsea.
Chelsea have actually debunked that rumor. Any sane manager, if you have Varane, I mean, one of the very achieved defenders in the world, very experienced, and there is Martinez, up and coming, matador in defense. You would want to, and he's proven that he deserves.
Ironically, he won all of the aerial duels.
Yeah, and because
he won all of them
because he's very, very.
And he came up against. I mean,
it's about
defending
is about timing. If you're able to read anticipation. I think that yesterday what worked, and that's why I agree with Kofi. You could see the imprint of a good manager. In the first half, their ball movement was very slow. Yeah. The play leading to the goal was down to Ten Hag's switch in tactics. Yeah. In the second half, they were moving the ball around very, very quickly, and that link up play between Dalot and what's his name? Bruno Fernandes. If you watch before the goal was scored, they had done that before, creating a triangle around the fullback of the Southampton defense. That's why I think that we need to credit them. So if you are watching them, watch how he steadies the team. His teams improve in the second half. Yeah. And that's, for me, I think it's kudos to him,
but because we cannot go without talking about the bad nature of the pitch. That's EPL.
It's the weather.
And it really affected the complexion of the game.
Well, I agree. I mean, but
I'm told it's the weather.
Perfection. There's no perfection.
I'm told it's the weather. UK and Europe are experiencing, outrageous, high temperatures. It's the weather. So it actually caused the grass to be. They try to do the best with the grass.
I'm interested in how long United are able to sustain this
for
momentum.
Me, like I agree with Kofi, they need
how long are they able to sustain this momentum?
If you look at the games that they have to play, Kofi, if you look at the games they have to play, if they're able to go through those 5 games, then we need to look at them as potentially being a top 40, because they have Arsenal to play, they have Leicester to play, they have pretty difficult games. But let's see. For United, it's all about sustaining the momentum.
It's only match week 4. Again, we look at how United are able to get back into the top 4. That's my interest, if you ask me. I'm only looking at how they're able to
they will not win the league. It's all about getting into the top 4.